The boy was dying, and nobody had come. Not the foster mother who'd kept him for 3 months. Not the caseworker who'd promised she'd check in. Not a single soul in this world had walked through those hospital doors asking for Ethan Wick, 7 years old, post-op from emergency heart surgery, lying in a pediatric ward bed with monitors beeping his fragile existence into the sterile air. And, standing in the doorway, trapped by something he couldn't name, was the man who owned the building. Adrian Ripley hadn't meant to stop here. Hell, he hadn't meant to be on this floor at all. The hospital administrator had mapped out his route with military precision. Main lobby, executive wing, cardiac research center, smile for the cameras, shake some hands, sign the oversized check for the PR team. 30 minutes, tops. Then back to the penthouse where a bourbon and blessed silence waited. But his assistant had taken a wrong turn near the elevators. And Adrian, distracted by an email that could wait, had followed without paying attention. By the time he looked up, they were standing outside the pediatric intensive care unit, and through the window of room 247, he'd seen the boy. Small, impossibly small, tangled in white sheets, dark hair falling across a forehead too pale, too still, and alone. Mr. Ripley, his assistant, Grace McFly, touched his elbow. Sir, we're running behind schedule. The press is waiting downstairs. Adrian didn't move. Who's in that room? Grace glanced through the window, her expression flickering with something like discomfort. Sir, this is the PICU. We weren't supposed to. I asked who's in that room. She pulled out her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Ethan Wick, age 7. Emergency mitral valve repair 3 hours ago. Listed as. She paused, and Adrian heard the weight in that pause. Listed as a ward of the state. No guardian present. No guardian present. The words hit Adrian like a fist to his chest, sudden and brutal. He'd written the checks that funded this wing. He'd posed for the photos at the ribbon cutting. He'd never once walked these halls and looked into the rooms, at the actual people his money was supposed to save. Mr. Ripley, please. The cameras. Tell them I'm delayed. Before Grace could protest, Adrian pushed open the door. The room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Medical equipment crowded the small space. 4 poles, monitors, a ventilator standing silent in the corner like a threat. The boy lay in the center of it all, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. So fragile Adrian felt like his footsteps alone might shatter him. He shouldn't be here. He had no reason to be here. This wasn't part of the plan. But something about the emptiness of that room, the absolute absence of another human being who gave a damn, had hooked into Adrian's ribs and wouldn't let go. He moved closer. The boy's chart hung at the foot of the bed, and Adrian lifted it with hands that had signed billion-dollar deals without trembling. Now they shook. Patient. Ethan Wick, male, 7 years. Diagnosis: congenital heart defect, mitral valve prolapse. Surgery: emergency repair, 11:47 a.m. Emergency contact: none listed. Guardian: state custody. Caseworker unavailable. Notes: patient expressed fear of waking up alone. No visitors during pre-op. History of placement instability. 4 foster homes in 2 years. For foster homes. 7 years old. Adrian's throat closed. He knew that number. He knew what it meant when you were shuffled from house to house. When you learned to pack your life into a garbage bag. When you stopped asking if anyone would come because the answer was always the same. He'd been that boy once. Different name, different decade, same devastating math. The boy's eyes opened. Not slowly. Not peacefully. They snapped open like he'd been jolted awake by emergency. Dark brown and too alert for someone who should still be under anesthesia. They found Adrian immediately, and the fear in them was so raw, so practiced, that Adrian forgot how to breathe. You're real, the boy whispered. His voice was hoarse, damage from the intubation tube. I thought I was alone again. Adrian should have stepped back, should have called for a nurse, should have done anything except what he did. He sat down. You're not alone, Adrian heard himself say. The boy blinked, and something flickered across his small face. Hope, maybe, or the dying ember of it. Everyone says that. Then they leave. I'm not everyone. The lady from the office said she'd come. She didn't. Ethan's fingers twisted in the sheets, the 4-line taped to his hand pulling slightly. My foster mom said hospitals make her sad. She didn't want to be sad. She didn't want to be sad. So she left a 7-year-old to wake up from heart surgery alone. Adrian felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd sealed off decades ago when he decided that success was the only emotion worth feeling. Anger flooded in, clean, pure, righteous anger. "What's your name?" the boy asked. "Adrian." "That's a fancy name." Ethan managed a weak smile. "You look fancy too. Are you a doctor?" "No, I'm just visiting." "Visiting me?" The question was so careful, so practiced in its low expectations, that Adrian wanted to tear something apart. This boy had learned not to hope. 7 years old, and he'd already mastered the math of abandonment. Hey, beautiful souls, I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching from. If this story's already got you feeling something, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I promise you, what happens next will stay with you long after you've clicked away. And drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. I love knowing you're out there. Ethan's eyes started to drift closed, the anesthesia pulling him back under. But he fought it, struggling to stay awake, and Adrian recognized that fight too. The desperate need to make sure the person in the room was real, would stay, wouldn't disappear the moment you stopped watching. "Adrian," the boy's voice was fading. Will you be here when I wake up?" And there it was. The question that split time into before and after. Adrian looked at this boy, this stranger, this ghost of his own past, this child the world had decided wasn't worth staying for, and something fundamental shifted in the architecture of his carefully controlled life. He thought about the press conference waiting downstairs, the meetings stacked in his calendar, the empire that ran on his presence and his ruthlessness and his absolute emotional unavailability. He thought about the garbage bags, the caseworkers, the foster fathers who'd looked through him like he was invisible. The years of learning that love was a transaction, and he'd never be valuable enough to keep. He reached out and took Ethan's small hand in his. "Yes," Adrian said. "I'll be here." The boy's eyes closed. His breathing evened out, and Adrian sat there holding the hand of a child he'd met 5 minutes ago, feeling the weight of a promise he had no idea how to keep. But he would keep it, because nobody had kept it for him. And that was where everything began. Adrian didn't let go of the boy's hand. Grace appeared in the doorway twice, first hovering uncertainly, then with increasing urgency as the PR team's messages apparently escalated from polite inquiry to corporate panic. Both times, Adrian silenced her with a look that had made boardroom sharks reconsider their life choices. The third time, she didn't come back. He sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside Ethan's bed and watched the monitors track a heartbeat that shouldn't have needed surgical intervention at 7 years old. The rhythm was steadier now, stronger than it had been when the boy first opened his eyes. Adrian found himself counting the beats, as if his attention alone could keep them going. "This is temporary," he told himself. "You made a promise to a scared kid. You'll keep it until he wakes up. Then you'll make sure he has what he needs, better placement, proper follow-up care, maybe a college fund. And you'll go back to your life. Clean, surgical, exactly like every other problem he'd ever solved with money and strategic distance." But even as he constructed the exit strategy in his mind, Adrian couldn't ignore the weight of Ethan's medical chart in his other hand. He'd read it 3 times now, and each pass revealed new details that sat like stones in his gut. Born to a mother who disappeared from the hospital 2 days after delivery. No father listed. Placed in state custody at 4 days old. For days. This boy had been alone since he was 4 days old. First foster placement, the Caldwells, 6 months. Reason for removal, family moving out of state, unable to take foster children. Second placement, the Johnsons, 8 months. Reason for removal, unexpected pregnancy, need to focus on biological child. Third placement, the Reeves family, 4 months. Reason for removal, child's medical needs too complex for family situation. Current placement, the Porters, 3 months. Status, unknown. Foster mother contacted, declined to visit hospital. Declined to visit. Adrian's jaw locked, so tight he heard his teeth grind. The Porters had this boy in their home, cashed the state checks, and when he needed them most, when he was being wheeled into surgery that could have killed him, they declined to show up. And the caseworker, the one person whose actual job was to ensure this child wasn't abandoned, unavailable. She's probably swamped, a voice said from the doorway. Adrian's head snapped up. A nurse stood there, late 50s, gray hair pulled back, eyes kind but tired in the way that came from seeing too much. Her badge read Sandra Boggs, RN. The caseworker, Sandra clarified, moving into the room to check Ethan's vitals. They're all carrying double loads since the budget cuts. She probably has 40 kids on her roster. 40 kids, and not one of them gets a visit when they're in surgery. Sandra's hands paused on the 4-line. You're Adrian Ripley. It wasn't a question. Adrian waited for the usual response. The deference, the careful politeness people used around men who could fund hospital wings or end careers with a phone call. Instead, Sandra met his eyes directly. I've worked this floor for 23 years. I've seen a lot of kids like Ethan. Sweet, quiet, too good at not asking for things because they've learned nobody's going to give them anyway. She adjusted Ethan's blanket with practiced gentleness. You know what I haven't seen much of? People like you actually sitting beside the bed. People like me. Rich people. Important people. The ones who donate and smile for cameras and never walk past the lobby. She checked the monitor, noted something on her tablet. So I'm curious, Mr. Ripley. Why are you here? It was a fair question. Adrian didn't have a fair answer. He asked me to stay, he said finally. Sandra's expression softened. And you said yes. That's more than most people give these kids, adults who should know better, who signed papers promising to care. She moved toward the door, then paused. His surgery went well. Dr. Yi is one of the best. But recovery's going to be rough. He'll be here at least a week, maybe more. And when he leaves, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. When he leaves, he goes back to the Porters. The people who couldn't be bothered to show up. What happens if they refuse to take him back? Adrian asked. Emergency placement. Group home. Usually, until they can find another foster family willing to deal with his medical needs. Sandra's voice carried no judgment, just exhausted reality. Not a lot of people jump at the chance to foster a kid with a heart condition who's going to need follow-up surgeries and specialist appointments in. I'll take him. The words came out of Adrian's mouth before his brain had fully processed them. Sandra stared at him. Adrian stared back, equally shocked by himself. I'm sorry, what? I'll take him. Foster him. Whatever the process is. Adrian stood, still holding Ethan's hand, his mind racing to catch up with his mouth. I have resources. Staff. I can hire the best medical care. He'll have everything he needs. Sandra's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. Mr. Ripley, do you have any idea what you're saying? Fostering isn't writing a check. It's appointments and medications and night terrors, and a kid who's going to test every boundary because he's waiting for you to send him back like everyone else. I know what it is. The sharpness in his voice surprised them both. Adrian forced himself to breathe, to find the control that had slipped. I know exactly what it is. I was that kid. Understanding flickered across Sandra's face. You were in foster care. 6 homes in 4 years. I aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and a lot of anger. Adrian looked down at Ethan's sleeping face. I built an empire because nobody was going to take care of me, so I had to do it myself. But this boy, his throat closed. He shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should. If you're still with me, drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever made a promise that changed your life? I'd love to hear your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Trust me, you want to see where this goes. Asterisk, asterisk. Sandra studied him for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentler. It's not that simple. The state has requirements. Home studies, background checks, and you're a single man with no parenting experience. I'll meet every requirement, pass every check, hire whoever I need to hire. Adrian met her eyes. Tell me what I have to do, and I'll do it. The nurse pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. This is the number for Child Protective Services. Ask for Margaret Shun. She's the supervisor. Tell her Sandra sent you. She handed him the card. But Mr. Ripley, this isn't a business deal. You can't negotiate your way out when it gets hard. This is a human being who's been hurt more times than anyone should survive. If you're not all in, if there's even a chance you'll walk away, then don't start. Because one more abandonment might actually break him. Adrian looked at the boy sleeping in the hospital bed, at the too small body that had survived 7 years of nobody staying, at the hand still curled in his. "I'm all in," he said, and somewhere in his chest, in the place he'd sealed off after the last foster father had told him to pack his trash bag, something cracked open and let the light back in. Ethan woke up screaming, not the groggy, confused emergence from anesthesia that Sandra had warned about. This was pure terror, a sound so primal and broken that Adrian was on his feet before conscious thought caught up, the chair clattering backward. Hey, Ethan, you're okay. You're safe." Adrian gripped the boy's shoulders gently, trying to ground him without restricting him. "I'm here. I told you I'd be here." But Ethan wasn't seeing him. His eyes were open, wild and unfocused, hands clawing at the foreline like he was trying to escape his own body. "Don't send me back. Please don't send me back. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good." Sandra burst through the door, another nurse right behind her. "Post-operative delirium," she said quickly, moving to check his vitals. "Sometimes happens with pediatric patients." "Ethan, sweetheart, can you hear me?" "I'll be better, I promise." Tears streamed down the boy's face. "I won't cost too much. I won't need a lot. Please just let me stay." Adrian felt something shatter inside his chest. He'd said those exact words once. Different kitchen, different foster mother, same desperate mathematics of a child, trying to calculate his own worth in groceries and space. "Ethan." Adrian kept his voice low, steady, the way he wished someone had spoken to him. "Look at me. Right here. Can you see me?" The boy's eyes finally focused, found Adrian's face. The panic didn't disappear, but it shifted, confusion replacing pure terror. "You stayed," Ethan whispered. "I told you I would." But the boy's breathing was still too fast, too shallow. "But you're not supposed to stay. Nobody stays." Sandra caught Adrian's eye, nodded toward the door. The other nurse was already preparing something, a mild sedative, probably, to ease him back into rest. But Adrian didn't move. "I'm not nobody," he said quietly, "and I made you a promise." Ethan stared at him like he was trying to solve an impossible equation. Then, so quietly Adrian almost missed it, Mrs. Porter didn't come. "I know. She said hospitals smell bad. That's why." Ethan's voice was flat, reciting facts. "And Mr. Porter said I was too much work anyway." That's what he told the caseworker lady. I heard him on the phone. Too much work. A 7-year-old boy with a repaired heart valve was too much work. Adrian's hands curled into fists. He forced them to relax. This wasn't the time for rage. That would come later, when he made calls, when he ensured the Porters never fostered another child, when he systematically dismantled every excuse and obstacle between this boy and safety. Right now, Ethan needed something else. "The Porters are wrong," Adrian said. "You're not too much of anything. You're exactly enough." Ethan blinked. "That doesn't make sense." "It will." Adrian pulled the chair back to the bedside, sat down. "How's your chest feeling? Does it hurt?" "Kind of, like someone sat on it." The boy's hand drifted toward the bandages, but Sandra gently redirected it. "That's normal, sweetheart," she said, administering the sedative through the foreport. "Your heart needed fixing, and doctor, you did a beautiful job, but it's going to be sore for a while. Will I need another surgery? Maybe when you're older, but not for a long time." Sandra smoothed his hair back. "For now, you just need to rest and heal, and maybe eat some Jell-O when you're ready. What's your favorite color?" "Red." Ethan's eyes were already starting to drift, but they never have red, just green and orange. "I'll make sure you get red," Sandra promised. As the medication pulled him under, Ethan's hand reached out, searching. Adrian caught it immediately. "Adrian, right here. When I wake up again, will you still? I'll still be here." The boy's eyes closed. This time, his breathing settled into something peaceful. Sandra waited until she was certain Ethan was deeply asleep before she spoke. "You should go home, Mr. Ripley. Get some rest. He'll sleep for hours now. I made a promise, and you kept it. But you can't live in this chair. Watch me. Sandra sighed, but there was approval in it. At least let me get you some coffee. And maybe some real food? The cafeteria is terrible, but there's a decent Italian place that delivers. Ms. Boggs. They both turned. A woman stood in the doorway, early 30s, blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a blazer that screamed government employee on a limited clothing budget. She carried a tablet and the exhausted expression of someone fighting a losing battle against bureaucracy. I'm looking for Ethan Wick's room. You found it. Sandra's voice went cold. You must be the caseworker. The one who was unavailable when a 7-year-old went into emergency surgery. The woman flinched. I was in court. 3 emergency removals, back to back. I came as soon as I could. He woke up alone. He woke up with me. Adrian interjected. He stood, and suddenly the room felt smaller around his 6'2" frame and the authority that radiated from him like heat. Adrian Ripley. And you are? The caseworker's eyes widened slightly. Recognition. Jessica Freeman. I'm Ethan's case manager. She glanced at her tablet. I wasn't informed anyone was visiting him, because there was no one to inform. His emergency contact list is blank. Jessica's jaw tightened. Mr. Ripley, I appreciate your concern, but Ethan's case is complex, and I'm not at liberty to discuss. Then discuss this. Adrian pulled out the business card Sandra had given him. I'm initiating the process to become Ethan's foster parent. I want him placed with me as soon as he's discharged. The room went silent. Jessica stared at him like he'd announced plans to colonize Mars. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. Mr. Ripley, with all due respect, fostering isn't something you just decide to do on a Tuesday afternoon. There's a process, home studies, training requirements, background checks that take months. Then expedite it. I can't just. Yes, you can. Adrian's voice didn't rise, but it filled every corner of the room. You're his case manager. You know his placement history. You know the porters have already failed him. So find a way to make this work, or I'll find someone above you who will. Still here? Drop a like and share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And tell me in the comments, would you have stayed? Asterisk, asterisk. Jessica looked at Ethan, small and still in the hospital bed. Then back at Adrian. Something shifted in her expression, exhaustion giving way to calculation. The fastest way would be kinship placement, she said slowly. If you were related to him. But you're not. What if I was? Excuse me. Adrian met her eyes. What if DNA testing showed a connection? Distant relative, maybe. Something the system missed. Sandra made a small sound. Jessica's face went carefully blank. Mr. Ripley, are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Adrian said quietly, that this boy deserves someone who stays. And I'm that someone. So tell me what I need to do to make that happen legally, or I'll find a way that isn't legal. Your choice. Jessica stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out a chair and sat down. Okay, she said. Let's talk. The process, Adrian discovered, was designed to break people. Home study appointments that required him to cancel board meetings. Parenting classes taught in fluorescent-lit community centers where he sat among couples half his age, learning about developmental milestones and attachment disorders. Background checks that excavated every corner of his past, including the foster care records he'd spent 30 years trying to forget. And through it all, Ethan remained in the hospital, healing slowly, asking every single day if Adrian was coming. Adrian never missed a visit. You're making a mistake, his CFO told him on day 4, cornering him outside the cardiac wing. Thomas Anderson had worked with Adrian for 15 years, survived 3 hostile takeovers and countless corporate battles. But right now, his expression carried something Adrian had never seen before, genuine concern. The board is asking questions. Your investors are nervous. You've missed 2 quarterly reviews. Reschedule them. Adrian, listen to yourself. You're risking everything you've built for a kid you barely know. I know him. Adrian's voice went dangerously quiet. I know exactly who he is. Thomas studied him, then sighed. This isn't like you. You don't do impulsive. You don't do emotional. You certainly don't blow up your entire life for what? Say it. For someone else's problem. Adrian turned to face him fully. He's 7 years old with a repaired heart, and nobody who gives a damn if he lives or dies. If that's not my problem, Thomas, then what the hell am I even doing with all this money? Thomas opened his mouth, closed it. The board meets Friday. They're going to want answers about your commitment to the company. Tell them my commitment is fine. Tell them I'm handling a personal matter. And tell them, Adrian's smile went sharp, that if they have concerns about my leadership, they're welcome to find another CEO who's tripled their stock value in 5 years. He walked away before Thomas could respond. Inside room 247, Ethan was sitting up for the first time, a small victory that had the nursing staff celebrating. He wore a hospital gown covered in faded cartoon characters, his chest heavily bandaged, but his eyes were brighter than they'd been 3 days ago. Adrian. The boy's whole face transformed when he spotted him. Sandra said you'd come during lunch, but it's only, he squinted at the wall clock, 11:32. You're early. Couldn't stay away. Adrian set down the bag he brought. I heard you graduated to solid food today. Just soup and crackers. But tomorrow maybe real food. Ethan's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. If I'm good enough. That phrase again. If I'm good enough. Adrian pulled up his chair. Ethan, I need you to understand something. You don't have to earn food, or care, or people staying. You get those things just because you exist. The boy looked at him with ancient eyes. That's not how it works. It's how it's going to work from now on. You say that now. But when you have to give me medicine every day and take me to doctor appointments, and I can't play sports like normal kids, and I cost money, Ethan's voice cracked. Everyone says it's okay until it's not okay anymore. Adrian felt that crack straight through his sternum. He wanted to promise it would be different, that he'd never leave, that Ethan would never feel this way again. But the boy had heard promises before. Words meant nothing. Only actions would matter. Tell me about the Porters, Adrian said instead. Ethan's shoulders hunched. Why? Because I want to understand what you've been through. The boy picked at his blanket, silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. They were okay at first. Mrs. Porter made cookies sometimes. Mr. Porter taught me to ride a bike. He swallowed hard. But then I got sick. Before the surgery, I kept getting tired and my chest hurt and the school kept calling because I couldn't do PE. That's not your fault. Mrs. Porter said it was too much stress. She'd cry when I had to go to the doctor. Mr. Porter stopped teaching me bike stuff. He'd look at me like, Ethan's hands twisted the blanket. Like I was broken. Like he got a broken kid and wanted a refund. Adrian's jaw locked. He made calls about the Porters. Quiet, strategic calls to people in child protective services who owed him favors. The family had already been flagged. They wouldn't foster again. But that didn't fix what they'd done to this boy's ability to trust. You're not broken, Adrian said firmly. My heart is. Your heart had a problem, and doctors fixed it. That's different, but I'll always have to be careful. Sandra said so. No contact sports. Regular checkups forever. What if? Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. What if you take me home and then realize it's too hard? What if you're just being nice now, but later you want to send me back? There it was. The real fear underneath everything else. Adrian reached out slowly, giving Ethan time to pull away. When he didn't, Adrian took the boy's hand. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Ethan nodded, eyes wide. When I was 8, a year older than you, I lived with a family called the Bennetts. They seemed perfect. Big house, nice yard, they even had a dog. Adrian's throat tightened around memories he'd buried. I thought maybe, finally, I'd found people who'd keep me. I started calling Mrs. Bennett Mom. I drew pictures for their fridge. I tried so hard to be good. What happened? She got pregnant with their real kid, and suddenly there wasn't room for the foster kid anymore. Adrian met Ethan's eyes. They sent me back 3 days after I called her mom to her friends at the grocery store. She didn't even look at me when the caseworker came. Ethan's hand tightened in his. That's so mean. It was. And it taught me that some people see foster kids as temporary, as practice runs or good deeds, not actual humans who need forever. Adrian leaned forward. But Ethan, I'm not some people. I know what it feels like to be sent back. I know what it's like to pack your life in a trash bag and wonder what you did wrong. And I swear to you, I will never, ever make you feel that way. But you don't even know me. I'm getting to know you. And so far, I like what I see. A knock interrupted them. Jessica Freeman stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, her expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Ripley." "Ethan." She stepped inside. "I have news about the placement." Adrian's heart rate spiked. He forced his voice steady. "And?" Jessica looked at Ethan, then back at Adrian. "The porters have officially requested removal. They're citing inability to meet medical needs." Ethan flinched like he'd been slapped. If this story is hitting you in the feels, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. And drop a comment. What would you say to Ethan right now? Asterisk, asterisk. However, Jessica continued, her voice softening. Given the circumstances and Mr. Ripley's expressed interest, we're fast-tracking an emergency placement review. If your home study passes, and Mr. Ripley, you should know the inspector is incredibly thorough. Ethan could be placed with you as early as next week. The room went still. Ethan stared at Adrian, hope and terror warring in his expression. Really? Really? Adrian confirmed. If you want that. This is your choice too, Ethan. I get a choice? The fact that he asked broke something in Adrian. Yes, you always get a choice. Ethan bit his lip. What if I'm scared? Then you're scared. That's okay. I'm scared too. You are. Terrified, Adrian admitted. I've never been anyone's parent before. I'm going to mess up, but I'm going to show up every single time, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The boy studied him with those two old eyes. Then, barely audible, I want to go home with you. Adrian's vision blurred. He blinked hard. Okay then, let's make it happen. Jessica made notes on her tablet. The home inspector will contact you tomorrow, Mr. Ripley. Be prepared for invasive questions. I've survived hostile board meetings. I can handle invasive questions. As Jessica left, Sandra appeared with Ethan's afternoon medications. But she paused, taking in the scene. The boy's tentative smile, Adrian's protective posture, the fragile beginning of something neither of them quite believed in yet. You two are going to be just fine, she said softly. Adrian hoped she was right, because he'd just made the biggest promise of his life to a 7-year-old who'd been betrayed by every adult he'd ever trusted. And Adrian Ripley never broke his promises. The home inspector arrived at Adrian's penthouse at exactly 9 a.m., carrying a clipboard and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick wealthy people try to pull. Her name was Dr. Patricia Skywalker, and she was not impressed. Mr. Ripley. She walked through the marble foyer without waiting for invitation, heels clicking against Italian tile. I've reviewed your application. Billionaire, never married, no children, no parenting experience whatsoever. And you want to foster a medically complex 7-year-old. Yes. Why? Adrian had prepared for this question. He'd rehearsed answers with his lawyer, practiced deflecting with grace and strategic vulnerability. But standing in his immaculate penthouse, 12,000 square feet of glass and steel 30 floors above Manhattan, all his preparation evaporated. Because nobody stayed for me, he said simply. And I won't let that happen to him. Dr. Skywalker's pen paused over her clipboard. You were in foster care. 6 homes in 4 years. And you think that qualifies you to parent? I think it means I understand what he's going through. I know what he needs. Empathy isn't enough, Mr. Ripley. Children need stability, structure, patience. She walked through the living room, examining everything. They need someone who can put them first, not squeeze them between board meetings and business deals. I've cleared my calendar. For how long? Dr. Skywalker turned to face him. A week? A month? What happens when the novelty wears off and you remember you run a billion-dollar corporation? The question landed like a punch. Adrian forced himself to breathe through the anger rising in his chest. I'm not looking for novelty. I'm trying to give a child a home. Noble words. I've heard them before. She opened doors, checked rooms, made notes. Usually from people who think love and money are the same thing. They weren't. Adrian knew that. He'd learned it the hard way, in foster homes where he'd been fed and clothed, but never wanted. Never chosen. Dr. Skywalker stopped at the master bedroom. Where would Ethan sleep? Adrian led her down the hall to a room he'd spent the last 3 days transforming. Gone was the home office that had occupied this space. In its place, a bedroom painted soft blue with a real bed, not expensive, just comfortable, covered in new sheets still creased from the package. Books lined a shelf. A nightlight shaped like a star sat on the dresser. It looked nothing like the rest of the penthouse. It looked like a child might actually live there. Dr. Skywalker walked inside slowly, touched the blanket, examined the books, age-appropriate, adventure stories, nothing too mature or too childish. She opened the closet, clothes in Ethan's size, price tag still attached because Adrian hadn't known what a 7-year-old liked. "You did this yourself?" she asked. "I had help, but yes, I chose everything." "Why this room?" "It has the smallest windows. It's closest to mine, so he won't be alone if he wakes up scared." Dr. Skywalker made a note. Her expression hadn't softened, but something had shifted. "Tell me about your support system. Who helps you when things get difficult?" "I have a staff." "Staff aren't family, Mr. Ripley. I'm asking about people. Friends. Relatives. Anyone who'll show up at 3 a.m. when Ethan has a nightmare and you're at the end of your rope." Adrian opened his mouth, closed it. He had business associates, employees, people who respected and feared him in equal measure. But friends? People who drop everything to help him parent a traumatized child? The silence stretched too long. "That's what I thought." Dr. Skywalker closed her folder. "Mr. Ripley, I appreciate what you're trying to do. Truly. But this child needs more than good intentions and an expensive bedroom. He needs—" Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at it. The hospital. His stomach dropped. "I have to take this." "Mr. Ripley." He answered. "This is Adrian Ripley." Sandra's voice came through tight with urgency. "Mr. Ripley, you need to come now. Ethan's asking for you. Something's wrong." Adrian was moving before she finished speaking. "I'm on my way." He grabbed his keys, headed for the door. Dr. Skywalker followed, protesting about finishing the inspection. Adrian ignored her. "Come or don't come," he said. "But I'm going to the hospital." She came. They took Adrian's car, a decision he'd regret later when Dr. Skywalker witnessed him breaking approximately 7 traffic laws to reach the hospital in 12 minutes. He didn't care. Ethan needed him. Room 247 was chaos when they arrived. Monitors beeping frantically. Medical staff crowded around the bed. And in the center of it all, Ethan, awake, crying, hyperventilating so badly his repaired heart was struggling to keep up. "Ethan!" Adrian pushed through the doctors. "I'm here. What happened?" She came. Ethan gasped between sobs. "Mrs. Porter came, and she said. Sandra intercepted Adrian, her face furious. "The foster mother showed up 10 minutes ago. Demanded to see him. Said she wanted to say goodbye properly. Security's escorting her out now, but the damage is done." "What did she say to him?" "Ethan, sweetheart, you need to breathe," one of the doctors urged, adjusting his oxygen. "Slow breaths. Can you do that for me?" But Ethan wasn't listening. His eyes found Adrian's, wild with panic. "She said you're just doing this for publicity. That rich people don't keep foster kids. They just use them for tax breaks and good press. She said when you get bored, I'll end up in a group home, and it'll be worse than anything because I'll have gotten used to." He couldn't finish. His breathing was too erratic. Adrian felt something ignite in his chest, pure, incandescent rage. But he shoved it down. Ethan needed him present, not angry. "Everyone out," Adrian said quietly. The medical staff looked at Sandra. She nodded. "Give them 5 minutes, but stay close." The room cleared except for Adrian, Ethan, and Dr. Skywalker, who'd pressed herself against the wall, watching everything with sharp eyes. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed and took Ethan's face in his hands. "Look at me. Right here. Can you see me?" Ethan nodded, tears streaming. "Mrs. Porter lied to you. She's angry because she failed you, and she wants you to hurt the way she's hurting. But everything she said is wrong. How do you know?" Ethan's voice broke. "How do you know you won't change your mind?" And there it was, the question Adrian couldn't answer with words. The question that required something bigger than promises. He pulled out his phone, opened his email, turned the screen so Ethan could see. "This is my resignation letter," Adrian said. "From my company, the one I built from nothing. I wrote it yesterday. Want to know what happens next? Hit subscribe, you won't regret it. And comment below, would you give up everything for someone you barely knew? ****. Ethan stared at the screen, uncomprehending. What does that mean? It means if I have to choose between my company and you, I choose you. Every single time. Adrian's voice didn't waver. I haven't sent it yet, because my lawyer says there might be legal ways to step back without resigning completely. But Ethan, if it comes down to my career or being your father, there's no contest. You win. The boy's breathing started to slow. But that's your whole life. No, Adrian said softly. That was my whole life. You're my whole life now. Dr. Skywalker made a small sound. Adrian had forgotten she was there. Ethan searched his face, looking for lies, for loopholes, for the inevitable betrayal. Adrian let him look. He had nothing to hide. I'm scared, Ethan whispered finally. Me too. What if I mess up? What if I'm too much trouble? Then we figure out together. That's what families do. Adrian brushed tears from the boy's cheeks. And Ethan, you're not too much. You're exactly the right amount. And I'm not going anywhere. Ethan launched himself forward, wrapping small arms around Adrian's neck, sobbing into his shoulder. Adrian held him, felt the boy's repaired heart beating against his chest, and knew with absolute certainty that he'd burn his entire empire to the ground before he let anyone hurt this child again. When Ethan finally pulled back, exhausted, Sandra returned to check his vitals. His breathing had normalized. Heart rate steady. Crisis averted. Dr. Skywalker approached the bed slowly. She looked at Ethan, then at Adrian. When she spoke, her voice had lost its sharp edge. Mr. Ripley, can I speak with you outside? Adrian glanced at Ethan. The boy nodded, already looking drowsy from the emotional exhaustion. In the hallway, Dr. Skywalker faced him. I've conducted 200 home studies in my career. I've seen every manipulation, every performance, every lie people tell themselves about why they want to foster. Adrian braced himself for rejection. That wasn't a performance, she continued. That was a man who'd walked through fire for a child he met 5 days ago. And that resignation letter, that's real. Every word. She pulled out her tablet, made several notes. Your home study is approved. Pending final paperwork. Ethan can be placed with you when he's discharged. Adrian's knees nearly gave out. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The hard part starts when you get him home. Dr. Skywalker met his eyes. He's going to test you. Push every boundary. Wait for you to prove his worst fears right. Can you handle that? I'll have to. She almost smiled. Good answer. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Ripley, I think you're going to be a good father. Terrified, imperfect, but good. And that's exactly what he needs. Ethan came home on a Wednesday. Adrian had prepared everything. Medications organized by time of day, specialist appointments scheduled, a private nurse on call. He'd read 17 books on parenting traumatized children. He'd childproofed the penthouse 3 times. He was not prepared. The first night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his new bed, lights on, staring at the door like he expected someone to burst through and drag him away. When Adrian checked on him at 2 a.m., the boy flinched so violently he knocked over the water glass on the nightstand. Sorry, Ethan whispered immediately. I'm sorry, I'll clean it up. Please don't. Hey, accidents happen. It's just water. Adrian grabbed a towel. Can't sleep. Ethan shook his head, too scared to speak. Adrian sat on the floor beside the bed. Want to talk about it? What if this is a dream? The boy's voice was barely audible. What if I wake up and I'm back at the porter's house? Or worse, and none of this was real. It's real. I promise. That's what I'm afraid of. Ethan pulled his knees to his chest. Because if it's real, then it can end. And when it ends, it'll hurt more than anything. Adrian had no answer for that. Because Ethan was right. The more you had, the more devastating it was to lose it. He'd learned that lesson in every foster home. So he did the only thing he could think of. He stayed on the floor beside Ethan's bed until the boy finally fell asleep at dawn. The second day was worse. Ethan refused to eat breakfast. Then lunch. By dinner, Adrian was bargaining like a hostage negotiator just to get him to drink juice. I'm not hungry, Ethan insisted, pushing the plate away. You need to eat. Your body's still healing. What if the food runs out? Adrian blinked. What? Mrs. Porter said I ate too much, that I was expensive to feed. Ethan stared at his hands. If I don't eat a lot, Maybe I won't cost you too much money. The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. This child was rationing himself, starving himself, to try to make himself worth keeping. Ethan, listen to me very carefully. Adrian crouched beside his chair. There is no amount of food you could eat that would make me regret bringing you home. You understand? You could eat everything in this kitchen twice over, and I wouldn't care. You say that now. I say it forever. Adrian's voice cracked. Please eat something. Anything. For me. Ethan took one bite, then stopped. It was the best Adrian could hope for. The third day, the school called. Adrian had enrolled Ethan in an exclusive private academy, small classes, excellent medical accommodations, the best education money could buy. He'd thought he was setting the boy up for success. Instead, Ethan had locked himself in a bathroom and refused to come out. Adrian left a board meeting mid-presentation and drove to the school going 20 over the speed limit. He found Ethan huddled in a corner stall, knees pulled up, breathing too fast. They keep staring at me, Ethan gasped. Everyone knows I'm the foster kid. The charity case. They know you're only keeping me because you feel sorry for me. That's not true. The teacher introduced me as Mr. Ripley's new project. A project, Adrian. Like I'm homework. Adrian felt rage surge through him. He'd deal with that teacher later. Right now, Ethan needed him. You're not a project. You're my son. The word hung between them, son. Adrian hadn't meant to say it. They hadn't talked about adoption, about permanency beyond fostering. It was too soon, too presumptuous. But Ethan's eyes went wide. You don't mean that. Edo. You can't. You barely know me. I know enough. Ethan shook his head violently. No, you don't get to say that and then change your mind later. You don't get to call me your son and then send me back when you realize I'm broken. You are not broken. Yes, I am. Ethan's scream echoed off the bathroom tiles. My heart is broken. My brain is broken. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't trust anyone. And everyone leaves because I'm too much work. He dissolved in his sobs, and Adrian pulled him close despite the boy's attempts to push away. He held on while Ethan fought him, while the boy's small fists hit his chest, while years of abandonment and pain poured out in broken cries. I hate you, Ethan sobbed. I hate you for making me hope. I hate you for making me want this. Because when you leave, it's going to destroy me. Adrian's own tears fell into Ethan's hair. Then I won't leave. Everyone leaves. Not me. You will. When you realize I'm not worth it. When you meet someone and want real kids. When I need another surgery and it's too expensive or too scary or too. Ethan. Adrian pulled back enough to look at him. I was you. I know exactly what you're feeling. And I'm telling you I won't. Leave. You can't promise that. Watch me. They sat on that bathroom floor for an hour. Adrian called the school, said Ethan wouldn't be returning. Ever. He'd find another school, one where teachers understood trauma, where wealth didn't buy social currency, where his son could just be a kid. His son. The words felt right even as they terrified him. That night, Adrian made a decision. He sent the email, the resignation letter he'd shown Ethan. His lawyer had structured a gradual transition, keeping him on the board but removing daily operational control. The company would survive without him. Ethan needed him more, but the boy was getting worse, not better. He barely ate, rarely slept, flinched at every sound. And no matter what Adrian did, no matter how many times he promised to stay, Ethan remained convinced it was temporary. On day 7, Jessica Freeman came for a check-in visit. She found Adrian in the kitchen at 3 a.m., researching child psychologists, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the weight of impending failure. Mr. Ripley. Jessica sat down across from him. How are you holding up? I'm not. Adrian's voice was raw. Nothing I do is enough. He won't eat, won't sleep, won't trust me. And I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it. Trauma doesn't work that way. Then what do I do? Jessica studied him carefully. You keep showing up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I'm showing up. It's not working. It's been a week, Mr. Ripley. These kids have spent years learning that adults are temporary. You're asking him to unlearn that in 7 days. So what? I just wait. While he suffers. You wait. You stay consistent. You prove through boring, daily repetition that you're not going anywhere. Jessica leaned forward. And Mr. Ripley? You forgive yourself for not being perfect. Because that's what he needs to see, that imperfect people can still stay. Still reading? Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever felt like giving up on something important? What kept you going? Asterisk asterisk. Adrian wanted to believe her. But that night, when he checked on Ethan, he found the boy's backpack packed, clothes folded inside. The teddy bear Sandra had given him at the hospital tucked on top. Ethan, what's this? The boy didn't look at him. I'm making it easier. When you're ready to send me back, everything's already packed. You won't have to wait. Something broke in Adrian's chest. He sank to his knees beside the bed. I'm not sending you back. You will. What do I have to do? Adrian's voice cracked. What do I have to do to make you believe me? Ethan finally looked at him, and the hopelessness in his eyes was devastating. Nothing, because everyone who ever said they'd stay eventually left. Why would you be different? Adrian had no answer. Because Ethan was right. He couldn't prove the future. He couldn't guarantee he wouldn't screw up, wouldn't fail, wouldn't somehow become another person in this boy's long line of abandonment. All he could do was stay. So that's what he did. Even when it felt hopeless. Even when Ethan pushed him away. Even when every instinct screamed that he was failing. Adrian stayed. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after Ethan came home. Adrian woke to silence, the kind of silence that makes a new parent's heart stop. He bolted from bed and ran to Ethan's room, already imagining worst-case scenarios. The bed was empty. Ethan, Adrian's voice came out strangled. He checked the bathroom, the hallway, his own bedroom. Ethan, panic clawed up his throat. The penthouse was 30 floors up. The windows were secure, but he heard it then, a small sound from a kitchen. Adrian ran. He found Ethan standing on a chair in front of the stove, trying to crack eggs into a bowl. The boy had clearly been at it for a while. Eggshells littered the counter, yolk dripped down the cabinet, and flour dusted everything within a 3-foot radius. I'm making breakfast, Ethan said without turning around. His voice was small, defensive. I wanted to show you I'm useful, that I'm worth keeping. Adrian's heart shattered and reformed in the same breath. He walked over slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. Ethan, you don't have to earn your place here. Yes, I do. The boy's hand shook as he tried to crack another egg. It slipped from his fingers and splattered on the floor. I have to be good. I have to help. I have to. You have to be 7 years old. Adrian gently took the egg from Ethan's hand. That's it. That's the whole job description. But in all my other houses, I had to. This isn't your other houses. Adrian lifted Ethan off the chair, set him on the counter so they were eye level. This is your home. And in your home, you don't have to earn breakfast or love or safety. You just get them. Ethan's lip trembled. What if I believe you and you're lying? Then I'm lying, and you get to be mad at me. But Ethan, Adrian's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I'm not lying. The boy studied his face for a long moment. Then, so quietly, the Caldwell said that too, before they moved away and left me. I know. The Johnsons said I was part of the family, until their real baby came. I know. Mrs. Porter said I was welcome in their home, until I got sick. I know. Adrian's hands were gentle on Ethan's shoulders. And I can't erase what they did to you. I can't make those scars disappear. But I can promise that I'm different. And then I can prove it day after day until you believe me. How long will that take? However long you need. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. What if it takes forever? Then it takes forever. I've got time. Something shifted in the boy's expression. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the smallest willingness to try. The eggs are probably gross now. Adrian glanced at the disaster zone that was his kitchen. Definitely gross. Want to order pancakes instead. You're not mad? About the mess? Ethan, I've negotiated deals worth billions of dollars. I think I can handle some spilled eggs. Adrian smiled. Besides, now I know you're brave enough to try cooking. That's kind of amazing. Really, really. Though maybe next time we start with something less explosive, like cereal. For the first time since coming home, Ethan laughed. It was small, tentative, but real. They ordered pancakes, ate them in the mess of the kitchen because cleaning could wait. And Ethan ate 3 whole pancakes without being asked, without rationing, without fear. It was a start. That afternoon, Sandra stopped by for a follow-up check. She found him on the living room floor, building an elaborate race track out of cardboard boxes and tape. "Well," she said, hands on hips, "this is definitely not what I expected from a billionaire's penthouse." Adrian looked up from where he was trying to reinforce a tunnel with duct tape. "Turns out marble floors are terrible for racing cars. We're improvising. Adrian says we can paint them any color I want," Ethan added, holding up a blue car. "Even if it gets messy." Sandra's eyes softened. She pulled Adrian aside while Ethan tested the track. "How's he really doing?" "Better. Some days." Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "He still doesn't sleep through the night. Still asks if I'm sending him back. But today he laughed. Actually laughed. So I'm calling it progress." "And you? How are you holding up?" Adrian thought about the sleepless nights, the missed meetings, the constant fear that he was failing this boy who'd already been failed so many times. "I'm terrified every single day, but I'm not going anywhere." "I can see that." Sandra squeezed his arm. "For what it's worth, I've been a pediatric nurse for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of foster placements. Most people give up when it gets hard. You're not giving up." "I can't. He's counting on me." "No, Mr. Ripley. You're counting on him too. And I think that's what makes this different." After Sandra left, Adrian and Ethan finished the racetrack. They ordered pizza for dinner, Ethan's choice, and he ate 2 whole slices without prompting. They watched a movie Ethan picked, even though it was animated and Adrian didn't understand half the references. And when bedtime came, Ethan didn't argue. Adrian tucked him in, made sure the nightlight was on, checked that water was within reach. "Need anything else?" "Adrian." Ethan's voice was small in the darkness. Can you stay? Just until I fall asleep?" "Of course." Adrian settled into the chair beside the bed. Ethan's hand reached out from under the covers, searching. Adrian took it. "Adrian." "Yeah, buddy. I'm glad you lied to me." Adrian's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" "That day in the hospital, when you said you'd be there when I woke up." Ethan's thumb rubbed across Adrian's knuckles. "I didn't believe you. I thought you'd be gone. But you weren't." "I wasn't. And you're still not gone." "I'm still not gone." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, maybe you won't leave." It wasn't certainty. It wasn't even trust yet. But it was possibility, the smallest crack in the wall Ethan had built around his heart. "I won't leave," Adrian promised. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. What if I have another surgery? I'll be there. What if I get sick? I'll take care of you. What if I break something expensive? Things can be replaced. You can't." Ethan's breathing started to even out. His grip on Adrian's hand loosened slightly. "Adrian." "Yeah. I think maybe I might want to call you Dad. Someday. When I'm ready." Adrian's vision blurred. He blinked hard, voice rough. "Whenever you're ready, I'll be here. Promise." "Promise." If this story is touching your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. And comment below, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? Ethan fell asleep holding Adrian's hand, and Adrian stayed. Not because he'd promised, not because he had to, but because there was nowhere else in the world he'd rather be. The next morning, Adrian made a call. "Thomas? It's me. About that resignation, I'm making it permanent. Not temporary transition. Full resignation." He watched Ethan sleep, peaceful for the first time in weeks. "I'm done with the company. I'm staying home." "Adrian, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He hung up, climbed back into the chair. And when Ethan woke up an hour later, panicked and searching for proof that Adrian was real, he found him exactly where he'd been promised. Still there, still staying, still home. 3 months later, Adrian got the call he'd been dreading. "Mr. Ripley, this is Margaret Shun from Child Protective Services. We need to discuss Ethan's case." Adrian's blood went cold. He was in the kitchen making Ethan's favorite lunch, grilled cheese with the crust cut off, apple slices arranged in a smiley face. The knife clattered from his hand. "What about his case?" "There's been a development. I'd rather discuss it in person. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" "Ethan has a cardiology appointment at 2. Bring him. This concerns him too." The line went dead. Adrian stood frozen, worst-case scenarios flooding his mind. The Porters had changed their minds. The state was moving Ethan. Someone had challenged the placement. A biological relative had surfaced. He was going to lose him. Adrian. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas, even though it was nearly noon. That was allowed now. Lazy mornings, no pressure, just being a kid. Why do you look scared? Adrian forced his face into something resembling calm. Just got a call. We have to go downtown this afternoon. To the CPS office. The fear that flashed across Ethan's face gutted Adrian. In 3 months, they'd built something fragile and precious. Trust, routine, the beginning of family. But that old terror still lived right beneath the surface, ready to erupt at the smallest trigger. Hey, look at me. Adrian knelt down. Whatever this is, we handle it together. Okay, are they taking me away? Over my dead body. Ethan studied him, then nodded slowly. Okay, together. Margaret Chin's office was exactly as depressing as Adrian remembered. Fluorescent lights, gray walls, furniture that had seen better decades. She sat behind a desk buried in case files, looking as tired as every other social worker Adrian had encountered. But her expression when they entered was unreadable. Mr. Ripley. Ethan. Thank you for coming. She gestured to chairs. Please sit. Adrian kept Ethan close, one hand on the boy's shoulder. What's this about? Margaret pulled out a file. 3 months ago, you initiated emergency foster placement for Ethan. Since then, I've been monitoring the situation. Home visits, school reports, medical updates. She looked at Ethan. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Ethan glanced at Adrian, then back at Margaret. Good. Better. Are you happy living with Mr. Ripley? Yes. Does he take care of you? Make sure you have what you need. He makes me lunches with faces in them, and he reads to me every night. And when I have nightmares, he stays until I fall back asleep. Ethan's hand found Adrian's. He's not like the others. He doesn't leave. Margaret's expression softened slightly. She turned to Adrian. And you, Mr. Ripley? How has this experience been for you? Terrifying. Exhausting. The best thing I've ever done. Adrian's voice was steady. I know I'm not perfect. I burn dinner half the time. I don't always know the right thing to say. But I show up. Every single day. And I'm not going anywhere. I see that. Margaret opened the file, which is why I've recommended that the court move forward with your petition. Adrian's heart stopped. Petition. For adoption. Margaret slid papers across the desk. You filed the paperwork 6 weeks ago. Did you forget? He hadn't forgotten. He'd filed it late one night after Ethan had finally called him dad for the first time, quietly, accidentally, while half asleep. Adrian had stood in the hallway afterward and cried like a child. But he'd been terrified to hope. Terrified that something would go wrong, that the system would find a reason to say no, that he'd lose the boy who'd become his entire world. The court date is set for 2 weeks from today, Margaret continued. Barring any objections, the judge will finalize the adoption. Ethan will legally be your son. The room spun. Adrian couldn't breathe. Are you serious? Completely. Margaret looked at Ethan. How do you feel about that, sweetheart? Would you like Mr. Ripley to adopt you? Ethan's eyes went wide. He turned to Adrian, searching his face. You want to adopt me? For real? Forever? More than anything. But what if? The old fear crept back into Ethan's voice. What if you change your mind? What if? Ethan. Adrian knelt so they were eye level. Do you remember what I told you the first night you came home? That I was you once. That I know what it feels like to be sent back. Ethan nodded. I would never, ever do that to you. Not in a million years. You are my son. Paper or no paper, court order or no court order. You're mine, and I'm yours, and that's how it stays. Adrian's voice cracked. So yes, I want to adopt you. I want to be your dad officially. I want your last name to be Ripley. I want the whole world to know that you're my kid. Tears streamed down Ethan's face. Really? Really? Even though I'm broken? You're not broken. You're healing, and I get to be part of that. Adrian pulled him close. So what do you say? Want to be stuck with me permanently? Ethan's arms wrapped around Adrian's neck, holding on like he'd never let go. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Adrian held his son, and felt something fundamental settle into place. All the years of emptiness, of building empires to fill the void where family should have been, of armoring his heart against the pain of abandonment. Gone. Replaced by this 7-year-old boy who'd taught him that love wasn't a transaction, that staying was a choice you made every day, that family wasn't about blood, it was about showing up, especially when it was hard. This is it, friends, the moment we've been waiting for. If you're crying happy tears, drop a comment and let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Margaret handed them tissues, smiling despite her obvious attempts to stay professional. There's one more thing. The court will ask Ethan if this is what he wants. Are you prepared for that? Ethan wiped his eyes, nodded. I'm ready. Good. Because there's someone else who wants to be there. Margaret pressed a button on her phone. You can come in now. The door opened. Sandra walked in, followed by Dr. Skywalker and Jessica Freeman, and Adrian's breath caught Thomas Anderson, his former CFO, carrying a wrapped present. What is this? Adrian asked. We wanted to be here, Sandra said simply. For both of you. Thomas stepped forward, looking uncharacteristically emotional. You're my best friend, Adrian. I've been for 15 years, even though he never called it that. And when you told me you were choosing Ethan over the company, I realized you weren't losing anything. You were finding everything. I brought the paperwork from a hospital, Sandra added, from the day you met. I thought maybe Ethan would want to see where his story started. Dr. Skywalker handed Ethan a book. This is about adoption, about what it means, what to expect. I thought it might help. Jessica smiled. And I'm just here because I've worked in this system for 10 years, and I've never seen anything like what you two have built. I wanted to witness it becoming official. Adrian looked at these people he'd thought were colleagues, acquaintances, nothing more. But they become something else. They become family. Thank you, he managed. All of you. Ethan tugged on his sleeve. Adrian, can I ask you something? Anything. When the judge makes it official, when I'm really your son, can we get a dog? The room erupted in laughter. Adrian pulled Ethan close, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. Yeah, buddy, we can get a dog. And can Sandra come visit? And Dr. Skywalker? And Ethan looked at Thomas. Who are you? Thomas. Your dad's best friend, apparently. Can he come too? He can come too. Ethan beamed. Then his smile faltered slightly. Adrian, what if I'm still scared sometimes? Even after you adopt me. Then you're scared, and I help you through it. That's what dads do. You promise. Adrian had made a lot of promises in his life. Business deals, contracts, handshake agreements worth millions. But this promise, this one meant more than all the others combined. I promise. Forever. Ethan smiled. Really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. Okay, Dad. The word hit Adrian like a freight train of joy. Dad. Not Adrian. Dad. He'd built an empire. Made billions. Conquered every business challenge that came his way. But this 7-year-old boy calling him Dad was his greatest achievement. And it was just the beginning. The courthouse smelled like old paper and new beginnings. Adrian straightened Ethan's tie for the third time, hands trembling slightly. The boy looked sharp in his new suit, navy blue, fitted perfectly, with shoes so shiny Ethan kept staring at his reflection in them. You okay? Adrian asked. Nervous. Ethan clutched the teddy bear Sandra had given him months ago. What if the judge says no? She won't. But what if? Ethan. Adrian knelt down, taking his son's face in his hands. In about 10 minutes, we walk into that courtroom. The judge asks you some questions. You answer honestly. And then she signs papers that make official what's already true, that you're my son, and I'm your dad, and nobody can ever change that. Nobody. Ethan took a shaky breath. Okay, I can do this. We can do this. Together. The courtroom doors opened. Jessica Freeman stuck her head out. They're ready for you. Adrian stood, offered his hand. Ethan took it without hesitation. Such a small gesture, but one that had taken months to build. Trust offered freely. Connection without fear. They walked in together. The courtroom was smaller than Adrian expected, less formal. Judge Rebecca Malone sat behind the bench, late 50s, kind eyes, reading glasses perched on her nose. Sandra, Thomas, Dr. Skywalker, and Margaret sat in the gallery, quiet support. Mr. Ripley, Ethan, please approach, Judge Malone said warmly. They stood before the bench, hand in hand. The judge smiled at Ethan. Hello, Ethan. I'm Judge Malone. Do you know why you're here today? Ethan nodded. Adrian wants to adopt me. And how do you feel about that? Scared, but happy scared. Like the good kind of scared. Ethan glanced at Adrian. Like when you're about to do something amazing, but you're worried you'll mess it up. Judge Malone's expression softened. That's very wise. Can you tell me about living with Mr. Ripley? What's it like? He makes me breakfast every morning, even when he burns it. Ethan smiled slightly. And he helps me with homework, even the math parts he doesn't understand. And when I have nightmares about being sent away, he stays in my room until I believe I'm really home. Do you feel safe with him? Really safe. For the first time ever. And do you want him to be your father? Legally and permanently. Ethan's voice was steady. Yes, more than anything. Judge Malone turned to Adrian. Mr. Ripley, you've had quite a journey to get here. Former CEO, no prior parenting experience, taking on a medically complex child with significant trauma history. What made you decide this was the right path? Adrian looked at Ethan, then back at the judge. Because he asked me to stay, and nobody had ever stayed for me. So I knew exactly what that question cost him. What it costs when you ask, and the answer is no. His throat tightened. I couldn't be another person who walked away. And now, 3 months in, past the honeymoon phase, dealing with the reality of parenting a traumatized child. Any regrets? Not even one. He's the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it meant giving up your company. Especially because of that. The company made me successful. Ethan made me human again. Adrian's hand squeezed Ethan's. He taught me that showing up is more important than showing off. That love isn't something you earn. It's something you give freely. And that family isn't about biology or convenience. It's about choosing someone every single day and them choosing you back. Judge Malone removed her glasses, wiping them slowly. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I've presided over hundreds of adoption cases. Most are beautiful. Some are complicated. But rarely do I see a case where two people so clearly saved each other. She looked at Ethan. Young man, you should know, Mr. Ripley has passed every requirement with flying colors. Home studies, background checks, psychological evaluations, parenting classes. But more importantly, everyone who's observed your placement says the same thing. He shows up. Every doctor's appointment, every school meeting, every midnight nightmare. He's there. Ethan's eyes welled up. He promised he would be, and he kept his promise. That's what good fathers do. Judge Malone opened the file before her. Therefore, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Effective immediately, Ethan Wick's legal name is changed to Ethan Ripley, and Adrian Ripley is recognized as his lawful father with all rights and responsibilities therein. She struck her gavel. The sound echoed through the courtroom. Final, official, permanent. Congratulations. You're officially a family. Ethan turned to Adrian, eyes wide. That's it. We're done. We're just beginning. Adrian lifted him up, spinning him around. You're stuck with me forever now, kid. Promise. Legally binding promise. Ethan laughed, pure, joyful, free, and wrapped his arms around Adrian's neck. I love you, Dad. Adrian had built skyscrapers, closed billion-dollar deals, addressed thousands of people without breaking a sweat. But these 4 words from his 7-year-old son completely undid him. I love you too, Ethan. So much. The gallery erupted. Sandra's crying openly. Thomas clapped, so hard his hands had to hurt. Dr. Skywalker dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Even Jessica Freeman, who'd seen dozens of adoptions, looked misty. Judge Malone came down from the bench, something she apparently never did, and hugged them both. Take care of each other. We will, they said in unison. Outside the courthouse, photographers waited. Word had gotten out that billionaire Adrian Ripley was adopting. But Adrian didn't care about the press anymore. He hoisted Ethan onto his shoulders and walked through the crowd, answering no questions, making no statements. His son's laughter was the only press release that mattered. They went to Ethan's favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy, just a diner with good pancakes and milkshakes that came with whipped cream towers. Sandra, Thomas, and the others joined them, cramming into a too-small booth, celebrating with chocolate cake and terrible karaoke from the jukebox. Speech. Thomas called out. Adrian stood, Ethan beside him. I'm not good at speeches anymore. I used to give them to shareholders, trying to convince them I was worth their investment. But today I'll just say this. He looked at his son. Ethan, you gave me something I didn't know I needed. Purpose. Family. Home. You made me better. And I promise, every single day for the rest of my life, I'll try to deserve you. Ethan tugged his sleeve. You already do, Dad. We made it friends. If this story touched you, changed you, or made you believe in second chances, please share it. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And comment below, what does family mean to you? 6 months later, they added a dog to the family. A rescue named Bailey with 3 legs and a heart as big as Ethan's smile. A year later, Ethan's medical scans came back perfect. His heart was strong, steady, healing. 2 years later, they moved to a house with a yard because Ethan wanted space to run and climb and be the kid he'd never gotten to be. And every single night, without fail, Adrian tucked Ethan in a bed, checked that the nightlight was on, and waited for the question that still sometimes came. Dad, will you be here when I wake up? And every single night, Adrian gave the same answer. Always. Because some promises weren't just kept once. They were kept every day, in every small moment, in every choice to stay when leaving would be easier. Adrian had built an empire before he met Ethan, but he'd built a home after, and that made all the difference. Thank you for reading this journey with me. If you believe in stories where broken people find each other and build something beautiful, this channel is your home. Subscribe, share your thoughts below, and remember, you never know when a single choice to stay might change everything. Until next time, keep believing in second chances. Keep choosing love. Keep showing up, because that's what family does.